chanting on the streets and in universities. Iranians are calling for an end to the Islamic Republic. Nima spoke to the ABC secretly.
They are calling for the regime to change, to cut the snake at the head.
The unrest began when merchants shut their shops in Tehran's bazaar to protest the Iranian rial sinking to a new low against the US dollar. Under severe strain from sanctions and with inflation above 40%, Iranians say economic conditions have never been worse.
These protests are a hunger revolution. People have been pushed to desperation. When you look into young people's faces, you see sadness and exhaustion.
The currency crash came after several other crises, including a critical water shortage and a 12-day war with Israel over Iran's nuclear program. Some protesters are calling for the exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi to return.
The majority of the people see Reza Pahlavi as the only organised opposition outside the country. They believe he can restore Iran's dignity and glory.
The Iranian government has acknowledged the public anger and appointed a new central bank governor, but it's also suggested foreign interference is to blame.
We are engaged in a full-scale war. Right now, the enemy has placed most of its hopes on knocking us down through economic pressure.
That message doing little to quell unrest as protests continue to spread.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24, starting at verse 3, and it reads, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And YAHAWASHI answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." I want to give all praise, glory, and honor due to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. All praises, blessings, honors be to the Most High. His true name is YAHAWAH. BAHASHAM simply means in the name. YAHAWASHI is whom the world ignorantly and fraudulently calls JC. His name is YAHAWASHI. Yah is he, Hawashai is he saves or he delivers. Shalom to the Lord's elect. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Much respect to my fellow laborers that teach, preach, and prophesy in the true doctrine of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. And double honors to the elders, the bishops of the great millstone who taught me this truth. I want to thank the Most High, Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, for my teachers. And this is going to be a very brief epistle through the spirit and power of Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI. And at the end, I hope that you've been edified. So let's dive into this. I showed a video earlier. That was from the, I think it was the ABC News. We're showing you all the protests that are currently happening in Iran right now. And this article here, I may play that video again, may if the Spirit allows me. But this article here is from the Russian Today News, and it says, U.S. ready to support Iranian protesters, Trump. And you ask yourself, you've seen all over the news the last few years, if you've been paying attention, you will see that Iran is the boogeyman. Everything is Iran, right? So now all of a sudden you ask yourself, why would Donald Trump say something to that regard? Why would he? What benefit would it have for him? You ask yourself, if the Holy Spirit is working with you, you will see right through this madness, because they're not about to help the Iranians, so to speak. They're about to destroy, topple, destabilize this government and put their puppet leader in place. We'll get to that in shortly. But the scripture says, the book of Sirach, also known as Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12 and verse 10, starting at verse 10, it says, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. If you have something that is rusting, a piece of metal, and you take that metal and you sandpapered it off and just leave it there, it's going to rust again. See, because it says, though he humbled himself, all of a sudden, why? You ask yourself, why? Why would DJT ready to support Iranian protesters? Ask yourself. Other countries don't meddle in other countries' uproars and protests of the people in the world. All over the world is protests. But you ask yourself, what's in it for them? It says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed of him and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou had wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rusts have not been altogether wiped away. Exactly, because he is doing it for his own purpose. Ask yourself, what nation, what people are slated to benefit from the destruction of Iran? You see, if the Holy Spirit is working with you, or even people in the world that are paying attention to the geopolitical tensions and understand why it's behind it, why you ask yourself, why all of a sudden now he wants to help, goes back to, I mean to stay on topic, but it says, let's go here. It says, America is locked and loaded, I bet, you see, and can go in at any moment, the president says. That reminds me of the book of, let me go there really quickly. This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, starting at verse 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. So he's crooked. He has nefarious intentions. It says, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, his democracies. When he cannot say the word democracy without dropping boom, 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 his BOMBS on people. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man. America is locked and loaded and can go in at any moment. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. He's now meddling in other nations' protests. You ask yourself. It says, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell. And why does it say that? And is as death. The grave has never said we have enough bodies. We don't need no more dead bodies. It says, and cannot be satisfied. He wants the resources. He wants to put in their leader, their puppet leader, that serves their purpose, that serves the agenda of the enemy. It says, and once again, I always have to say this, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't have a horse in this race. See? It says, who enlarges his desire is hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto himself all people, and constantly in everyone's affairs. Let's get to it. U.S. President Donald Trump has promised to assist the Iranian protesters if needed, saying that Washington was ready to intervene at any moment. The Islamic Republic has been hit by the worst unrest since 2022, triggered by an economic crisis. See, with all these sanctions and stopping all these vessels coming from Venezuela to go to Iran, whatever the case may be, it's causing a lot of causing a lot of economic turmoil, and the inflation rate is really high now, and the people are feeling the pinch, because one thing that they were able to buy XYZ just a year or two ago, it has gone through the roof in terms of the price. So which means that the dollar, the value of the Iranian dollar, is weakening, causing their buying power causing to spend more money on imported goods, and it's causing inflation, so on and so forth. And those extra funds, extra dollars, it is always passed on to what? The citizens, the consumers. So it says, let's go here. I just brought something really quick just to show you that the dollar value, I said when the value of a dollar drop, it causes high prices and inflation. It says, yes, a drop in the value of the dollar often contributes to higher prices and inflation. Though it is not the only cause, here is how the connection works, step by step. A weaker dollar, more expensive imports. That's what I just said, right? It says when the dollar loses value relative to other currencies, imported goods, oil, food, electronics, machinery costs more in dollar terms. businesses pass their higher costs on to consumers. That's the spirit. I didn't even know that was there. And that's what I just said, right? It says price rise. Energy and commodities amplify inflation. Many global commodities, especially oil, are priced in dollars. And America has the what? The central reserve currency. You see, a weaker dollar can push global commodity prices up, higher fuel and energy costs. And Iran has a lot of oil and everything as well too, and have a lot of resources. It says transportation and production costs. Inflation spreads across the country. See, so man, look at all that. See, this is all the stuff here though, right? But the main point I want to highlight here is the weaker dollar means more expensive imports. So let's get back here. So it says the demonstrations began in late December when merchants in Tehran went on strike after the national currency, listen to this, the rial, hit a record low, about 1.44 million to the dollar. And that's very spiritual, 144. See, 1.44 million. That's a very highly spiritual number compared with 860,000 a year ago. And see, that's a massive jump, right? In terms of numbers, it says the protests have since spread to multiple cities across Iran and turned political and violent. Remember what I said about why would he want to help, right? But keep that in mind. It says videos circulated online suggest that the crowds have attacked government buildings and facilities linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, setting them on fire. See, it's because now they always have to have a boogeyman to justify what they want to do. To justify their wickedness, they always have to have a boogeyman. It says, if Iran shoots and violently kill peaceful protesters. So listen to him now. Just like how he's shooting and killing innocent so-called traffickers from Venezuela. Some of them were Trinidadian fishermen. Just like how, I guess that's the same comparison, right? But it says, if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue, Trump wrote on Truth Social. All of a sudden he wants to help his enemy. You know, that's funny because, anyways, I'll stay on topic. It says, we are locked and loaded and ready to go, he added. Casualties have already been reported among both the demonstrators and security forces. Iran's arch rival, the Israelis, is openly endorsing the unrest. There you go. This is your connection right now. Because they're openly endorsing the unrest. America says we will help. Who is slated to benefit from the most? It says it's Mossad spy agency is cheering for the protesting crowds and has claimed it has agents on the ground. There you go. See, so this is all these protests across the world. They have something called, they refer to them as agent provocateurs. They could infiltrate the crowds, the protests, cause all type of civil unrest, carnage, destroy buildings, set things on fire, cause chaos in the streets, allowing people to be deleted just to justify their own goal and agenda. Their plans, essentially. See, it says on Friday, Tehran warned against Trump, warned Trump against crossing a red line, with it. Let me read that again. On Friday, Tehran warned Trump against crossing a red line with what it calls adventurous tweets. 100%. There's a reason behind it. Iranians know U.S. rescue record well. Listen to this from Iraq. Yes, they learned, and Afghanistan to Gaza. They don't. These people are not stupid. They know their whole goal is to destroy and destabilize these governments. Their playbook is the same playbook over and over and over. There was that video with let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm just gonna play the audio if I can find it. Give me a second. All right, let's see. Bear with me. Speech. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Just to show you how corrupt these people are, man. Hopefully I find it. This is it. Listen to this.
7 countries. This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
How fitting is that today? Listen to this again.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Man,
I said, is it
got to grab a precept for that, because that's very prophetic what he just said in terms of what they do. For him to actually say that, so speaking so proudly and so boastfully, it just goes to show you that how prophecy is undefeated. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 64, right to the point, and verse 8. It says, "So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves." So he's basically telling the memo what he said. Take out what? These countries, 7 countries in 5 years. And the same countries here are on the top of the list. Let me play it again. Let me just stop something here for a sec. Bear with me. I have something here I need to stop it. Listen to this.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Finish off Iran.
I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, you remember that? He said, sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you.
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
I'm not going to give you his name.
So go through the countries again.
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
See that? That's their own tongues telling on themselves, because this is what he does. He goes into countries to destroy the countries and call them in the end shithole countries. Actual statement. It says, Iranians know how U.S. rescue record well. From Iraq to Afghanistan to Gaza, Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, wrote in a post on X. So they're not fooling nobody. An intervening hand nearing Iran's security on any pretext will be cut off with a regret, including response. Woo! That's the prophecy of Joel chapter 3 and verse 10. Let me grab it really quickly, because when he said that, man, that is fire. A few years ago, Iran would never really speak to Americans like that. This is the book of Joel chapter 3. Let me start at verse 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. The Lord is stirring up these kings' hearts. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. This is what is happening. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. The Americans and the Israelis, they had that engaged with Iran in that they call it the 12-day war back in the summertime in I think it's June or July. Don't quote me now, just either one. But it says Iran said now this time around they are ready. You see, it says beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. That's a very bold statement. Let the weak say I am strong. It says any intervening hand nearing Iran's security on any pretext. We're not buying what you're selling. Trump says what? Iran is ready to US is ready to support Iran protesters. He says on any pretext. That's the word pretext. Let me see what it means, the literal definition. I just want to see what it says here. Comes from the word, almost like the word pretend, but it's on any pretext. Let's see. Look up. I want to see what it says. That's all. It says test someone or something again. Nope. It says freed on bond days after the reset is now seeking pardon. No, is that the right word I'm looking at? Oh, I see. Retest. It's not, didn't get the P in there. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Here we go. Pretext. A reason given. A reason given in justification of a course of action that is not the real reason. See, pretext, a reason given in justification of a course action that is not the real reason. See, that is not the real reason. On the pretext, see, pretending to be, will be cut off with a regret, including response, the official says. The U.S. struck Iran last year. See, I didn't even know that was there. It says the U.S. struck Iran last year on Trump's orders in summer 2025. It joined Israel in a series of coordinated airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, claiming they were intended to prevent the countries from advancing its nuclear program. Tehran denied seeking nuclear weapons and condemns the attack as an unprovoked violation of its sovereignty. 100% right there, because they always in other nations. But let's get here now another article. This is from the Al Jazeera, and it says 5 things you need to know about the protests in Iran. 5 things you need to know about them. All right, it says mass protests are spreading across Iran, but what is driving them and where this could lead? Here's what we know. Protests about the soaring cost of living in Iran has entered its 6th day after the rial, that's their dollar, plunged to a record low against the United States dollar in late December. See, once again, America has the central reserve currency. After a number of deaths as a result of clashes between protesters and security services, the government of President Masoud Pezeshkian, I know I butchered that name, but Pezeshkian appealed for unity and blamed economic pressure on what he said are Tehran's enemies. See, the normal day-to-day man or woman or family trying to put food on their table, they don't care about all this stuff. They're not interested to know what is causing it. All they see is the government, and the government is bad. This is why they're elevating the other guy there. I can't remember this devil's name here. Let me see if it was right here. Let's see. Right here. Let's see. Is it this one? 1 second. He said it over here. Salakia. Can't think of this devil's name right now. Anyways, but it's the opposition. Did I write it here? Yeah, okay. You know what? Let me get it from here. So I put who's the opposition leader in Iran. Iran has fragmented opposition. Iran has a fragmented opposition. But the prominent figures leading different movements, this is the main guy right here. This is the guy I was looking at, including Reza Pahlavi, Salaki. This is the guy that they want because he endorses them. See, he endorses he's a plant. That's who they want because he plays ball with the other side. That's who they want. So right now they're making the current regime look terrible. Once again, I always say I don't have a dog in this race. I don't have a horse. Sorry, I don't have a dog in this fight, horse in this race. But this is who they want because he aligns with Iran's arch enemy. But once again, is he advocating for secular democracy? See, democracy. There's that word again. They know that, man. You see, this is why they realize that they know they want to get rid of the current regime and put in their people because this is what they want. You see, that's why. For unity and blame economic pressure on what he said are Tehran's enemies, despite government promises to enact economic reforms and put more effort into tackling corruption. The protests have continued. See, the protests have continued because this is all prophecy. Let's go to grab a precept. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 9, starting at verse 1. It says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And how do you measure the time diligently in itself? You see what is going on in the secular world and align them with the scriptures because it's all prophecy. You see, align them, measuring is the measuring stick. And that's how you see, when you see all these protests and uproars and nation fighting against nation, we can go to the Bible and pull out the scriptures because we are measuring the time diligently in itself. We're looking for prophecies. Speaking for myself first and foremost, you get up, as soon as you wake up, you say your prayer, you give your devotions, and you ask the Lord to continue to put that spirit on you and to guide you in the path of what lesson, what topic, what subject, But read. Nothing is planned. We read. We see what's going on in the geopolitical realm of the world, and eventually go to the scriptures. If the Spirit allows, we do a lesson on it. We speak on it. We see something, we speak on it, just like that, and give the people the warning. It says, He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before. See, the Lord declares the end from the beginning. Isaiah 42 and Isaiah 46, verse 9 and 10. It says, Then shalt thou understand that is the very same time wherein the highest, YAHAWAH, will begin to visit the world which he made. And how does the Lord begin to visit the world? By showing us all the signs, the signs in heaven. Some people would look at a blood moon and would be like, oh, that's very demonic, whatever. But we look at it as we look at it as a sign from the heavens. You see, it says, Then shalt thou understand that is the very same time wherein the highest, YAHAWAH, will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when they shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and this is what this is all based on, because you're seeing all the uproars of the people in Iran right now. The streets are covered, all type of calamities and carnage. The people are angry, they're hungry, they're fed up. See, that goes into also what? Sedition. They shall be sedition amongst men, because they don't regard the current rulership, but it's all by design. It says, Then thou shalt well understand that the Most High YAHAWAH spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. We just quoted that in Isaiah 42 and Isaiah 46. For it says, For like all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. End time prophecy. End is manifest, right? So let's continue on here. It says, A number of deaths as a result of clashes between protesters and security services. The government of President Masoud Pezeshkian applied for unity and blamed economic pressure on what he says are Tehran's enemies. You see, we read it already, but it says so far 7 people have been killed and about 44, once again, there's that number, 44, and 44 people have been arrested since shopkeepers in Tehran first shuttered their businesses on Sunday to protest against Iran's economic crisis. The tide of protests have continued to rise, with economic demonstrations morphing into political protests, and unrest has spread across the country. Civil unrest. How significant is the current rounds of protests? How real are the protesters' grievances, and where might this end? Here are 5 things you should know. It says worry about the cost of living are very real. The protests are large. See, it is hard to know how the government will respond. Mass protests have happened before. The protests could escalate, and that's what they want. Like by them saying that they have agents on the ground in these protests, they will escalate. Because you could have a protest, so to speak, I'm just speaking as a man right now. I'm not telling nobody to go out and protest, because we don't go and protest. See, that is of the world, right? But people can have a protest, a meaningful protest. All it takes is one agent provocateur to infiltrate that protest, go and smash a window, smash a car, or set someplace on fire, and next thing you know, that cause those people are a lawful protest can now turn into what? Something like look at these degenerates, look at these losers, and it will just destroy the whole cause. So they know that all these are all psyops that the Israelis and the Americans are using. It says in June, Israel and the United States launched an attack on Iran during the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, while the conflict ended in what the U.S. claimed was a decisive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Speculation that the Israeli has been ready itself for further strikes has continued. That is true. That's prophecy, because 2 Ezra chapter 15 verse 28 eventually will come to play very soon, because the Iranians said that they are ready. It says this week the U.S. news website Axios report that Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have discussed further strikes on Iran, as well as potentially targeting Tehran, Lebanese allies Hezbollah. Did we not hear what Wesley Clark says? All by design. Responding on social media, Iran's president wrote, "Answer of the Islamic Republic of Iran to any cruel aggression will be harsh and discouraging." I think that's the point there for that one. That's beautiful, right? So let's go here. Iran officials, this is from The Guardian. It says Iran officials warn Trump of red line after his threat to rescue protesters. It says Donald Trump has threatened to intervene in Iran if its government kills demonstrators. Prompting, since when does he care about the people, right? Prompting warnings from senior Iranian officials that any American interference would cross a red line. That is 100%. They know they're not buying it no more. In a social post on Friday, Salakia, Trump said that if Iran were to shoot and kill protesters, the US will come to their rescue. He added, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go," without explaining what that might mean in practice. It says in a protests in Iran are in their 6th day and are the largest since 2022, when the death in police custody of a 22-year-old Masha Amini triggered demonstrations across the country. The current unrest was triggered by an unprecedented decline in the value of the national currency. On Sunday, we just discussed that. The Iranian rial dropped to about 1.4 million to the United States dollar. Further, that's their buying power is weakening, destroying the nation, saying what they're doing in Venezuela. Further harming an already beleaguered economy. It says Iran Foreign Ministry Abbas Araghchi called the Trump statements reckless. This is what I read, all that to read this part. Called it reckless and dangerous, and said the country's military was on standby. And also, the protests have been mostly peaceful, but the attacks on public property will not be tolerated. See what he says now. Given President Trump's deployment of the National Guard, this is the jab he puts on Trump within United States borders. He of all the people should know that criminal attacks on public property cannot be tolerated. He of all people. That's what he says. He basically called him a hypocrite. He said at least 7 people have been killed and videos have been shown. Security forces carrying out shotguns with the sound of shooting in the background. So that's why, that's what he said, because this is all, like I said, this is all by design. And this is what he's basically saying, that he's, they don't trust the intentions of the Americans because they know they can see right through it. All the information is there. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, starting at verse 2. It says, "Son of man, say to the prince of Tyrus, thus said the Lord power, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. I sit in the seat of God, in the midst of the seas represent the people, yet thou art a man and not a God. Though thou set thine heart as the heart of God," and you can't get no more prouder than the most proud, right? Esau, Edom, it says, verse 3, it says, "Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that thou can hide from thee," because they have nefarious reasons. It says, with thy wisdom and with thy understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches. They want to take the oil, they want to take the resources. They come with some type of plan, pretext, just to destabilize and destroy these countries, and has gotten gold and silver in thy treasures. Because this is what he does. He always wants to be in other people's backyard, so he could continue to rob, rape, steal, pillage everything from these countries, and continue to destabilize them and keep them highly sanctioned, so they cannot have any form of sovereignty. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it right there. I hope that you've been edified. I want to give all praise, glory, and honor due to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA QADASH. All praises, blessings, honors be to the Most High. His true name is Yahawah. Coming in the name, BAHASHAM, His only begotten Son, whom the world ignorantly and fraudulently calls Jesus. His name is YAHAWASHI. His name is YAHAWASHI. All praises, honor, glory be to Yahawah Bashim Yahushai. Double honors to the elders, the bishops, and the apostle of the great millstone. Shalom, shalom, shalom.